Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phil's Place. My name is Philip Clarke, and we are into episode 4 right now. And I am more than honored to have a special guest here appearing in this episode. His name is Mr. David Finoli. David, welcome. How you doing?
Doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
And David, I really appreciate your appearance, and I can't wait to get into your history in writing,
Sure.
all of your accomplishments with writing, all the books you've published, and how you got into writing, and why Pittsburgh, and why Pittsburgh is such a great location for the history of sports and everything that we've seen, going back to the early 20th century,
Sure.
so
Yeah,
we have a lot of
absolutely.
amazing history here in Pittsburgh. So, okay. So anyway, David, let's just start with your passion for writing. It's very evident. You have 46 books that can be purchased right now, all sports,
Right.
and all different topics. So diverse. It's just incredible, your list. Okay. You have a 47th book that will be available on Black Friday.
Yes, sir.
And I would imagine this would be on probably Amazon and other outlets that
Yeah.
people can go to.
Yeah.
What's the name of that book?
That is our third annual Pirate Minor League Guide, the 2026 Pirate Minor League Guide, which I had the honor of doing with four guys, three of which who intently cover pirate prospects more than anybody in the area. They are Anthony Murphy, Jeff Reed, and Wilbur Miller, who are just have seen every pirate prospect, have good analysis on them, and I'm just so honored to be doing with them. And then John Drecker and myself handle the historical aspects of the book, where we feature how certain teams were built through prospects. John does the 1921 Pirates, and he looks back at the prospects in 2016 and how they've developed, Tyler Glasnow being one of them. I look at certain aspects like Ron Nakai's 27 strikeouts, the only professional baseball pitcher who struck out 27 men in a ball game.
When was that?
Incredible. He was a man who had bad ulcers. Was a bit of a wild pitcher who somehow they were able to harness his pitching, and he struck out not only 27 minor league batters in a game while in Bristol, but the next game he struck out 24 more. So they brought him up that year. I believe it was 52, and unfortunately, between his ulcers and him blowing out his arm, he never amounted to much at the major league level. But he is the only man in professional baseball history that can make the claim, I struck out 27 guys in a game. We also go through
24 the next outing. I never knew that story. That is super cool.
Oh yeah. There's things like that, and then I do a thorough analysis of 2025 Pirates and where they are headed in 2026, and quite frankly, with how trades or free agent signings, that everyday lineup is a little scary at this point.
Yes. Well, it's interesting that we started with the tidbit about the gentleman in 1952 throwing 27 strikeouts in one game and 24 the next. There's so much information, I would imagine, in your books that a lot of people will not know about. Amazing facts, amazing statistics, amazing just general information that we just don't hear about. It's not talked about on a day-to-day basis, during a baseball season or a football season or a hockey season or whatever. With all these books that you have written and published, which books come to mind that when you did your research, you're like, wow, I didn't know that. And I know that the audience will really be into this information.
Well, as most historians are that I've talked to, we get a kick out of finding things that nobody else was able to uncover.
Yes, right. Yeah.
That's the so-called holy grail of a historian. Um, what we did a book called Pittsburgh First,
Okay.
where I combined with several great writers, including um, Gary Kinn, who is one of the preeminent college football historians in the area. Chris Fletcher, my good friend from Duquesne University,
Yep.
former editor and publisher of Pittsburgh Magazine, and Tom Rooney, of course, who was the former president of the Penguins. But one thing I unearthed there that I kind of got a kick out of. The NCAA has always credited Washington and Jefferson with being the first college football team to wear numbers.
Ah,
So
wow.
I was going to write an article about that.
Right.
And I couldn't find any. I mean, before I verify something, I want to get, of course, the proper credentials for it through researching newspapers at the time. And I couldn't find anything about it. So I wrote them. I said, hey, there's this claim. You guys claim it. Can you send me over the verification of it? I'm doing an article on this. They told me basically that, they tried to research it a couple of years ago and couldn't find anything themselves. But, this is the historian that told us that this was a fact, and the NCAA took it. So I said, okay. So I kept looking, and I found that a few years later, I know I forget who Wisconsin played in the 1910s, but they were credited as being the first two teams to wear numbers in a game. So
Wow.
I went back, and 5 years earlier, apparently it was the University of Pittsburgh that wore numbers for the first time ever. And I believe the other team escapes me. I know Mount Union, they played the next week and wore numbers, but both teams wore numbers that game too.
Wow.
The thought at the time was they were trying to make a little extra money. They wanted to sell programs. How can you make programs more wanted by fans?
Right.
Okay,
Right.
you're going to put numbers on people, and that's how you're going to tell who these. Because I mean, with
Yes,
no
you can
numbers,
identify who's who on the
yeah,
field. Right.
it was
Yep.
tough to tell. So, I got a kick out of that. We were able to prove that. Sent the information over to Pitt. We talked about, and this, it was out there. I really didn't know how big the controversy was, but that Geneva College was the place where college basketball was first played. In essence, the
Right.
birthplace of college basketball. And we go into the controversy that had, I believe it was Vanderbilt, made their claim, and we looked it up and found that college basketball was actually played on Geneva a year earlier, and we had verification of it. And theirs is kind of spotty what they claim. So,
Right.
things like that, I get a kick out of.
Right. I mean, a lot of firsts, that happened in Western Pennsylvania. Was
Yeah,
it the first professional or the first professional football game? Apparently, the Steelers played, I guess, or I don't know. I'm probably getting this wrong, but if you can clarify,
yeah.
there was the first football game of some type that took place in Pittsburgh.
Well, what it was Pudge Heffelfinger was the first person to get paid for playing
Oh,
professional football.
okay.
So, we go over his story, and I've actually written a book in several chapters on Latrobe,
Right.
who had claimed in 1897 John Brellier. They paid him $10, and that was the thought process for years that he was the first professional player. Back then, you were much better admitting you were a bank robber than a professional football player. These guys would not admit they took money for playing football. A lot of them wanted to go back to college and play. I'm
Right.
sure they got paid under the table for doing that.
Yeah.
So John Brellier was the first one who said, hey, I got paid for it and I'm proud of it. Football took it as Latrobe being the birthplace of professional football, and actually awarded them the Hall of Fame to be built
Right.
Latrobe grounds, and we
Yeah.
have books that go through that and why that failed. They had it for several years and couldn't raise the money. The NFL wasn't going to build it because they were not anywhere near the cash cow they are today. And in 1960, I believe the NFL finally put it back up for bidding, and that's how Canton, the Timken company, decided they would pay it for Canton, and that's how Canton ended up with the Hall of Fame. But
Right.
in our book Keystone or Pennsylvania Made, that'll be coming out in the spring, the history of sports in Pennsylvania, I have a chapter on what I feel was the first all-professional football game, which was in 1897. Greensburg and Latrobe played at where the grounds at Offutt Field stand in Greensburg now.
It's where you're from originally, right?
That is my hometown. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I make a case for Greensburg and Latrobe being the first all-professional football game ever played.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
and that's where being like an historian in Western Pennsylvania, and especially like with sports, it's the history is so rich. I don't remember the exact date, but the Pittsburgh Pirates became a franchise in the
1887 or no, sorry, 1882.
1882.
Yes.
Okay. I mean, how many baseball teams were there in 1882?
Yeah.
And how did they get to whoever they were playing on the road? I mean, it's mystifying to me.
Yeah, they traveled by train. They were actually the Pittsburgh Alleghenies in the Old American Association, and that's always been an argument between historians and the franchise, because the franchise only claims 1887.
That's what I thought, right?
And what happened was the Alleghenies went from the American Association to the National League, and in 1887, and that's when the Pirates claim they began. But in reality, it's the same franchise. It just changed. Leagues.
Right. And the first World Series was played in Pittsburgh against the Boston Red Sox.
1903. Yes.
1903.
Yes.
And that was at McKenzie Field, right?
Exposition Park.
Oh, geez. I'm getting everything wrong this morning.
Not a problem. That's not a problem.
No, that's okay. So that's, and that's the site that's right on the North Shore.
Yeah. Yeah. The home plate is right behind, is there a Bar Louie there, or is that on the south side?
There is a Bar Louie that is on the North Shore, right?
It's right behind it.
Right behind it.
Yeah, so almost exactly where Three River Stadium stood. And the problem with Exposition Park was there was no way to stop the rivers from flooding back then. So they had to have special ground rules on games where the river was flooded in the outfield.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. So speaking of ballparks, let's talk about Forbes Field and some of the books you've authored that deal with some of the history of Forbes Field and some of the major events that have taken place in Forbes Field. And it doesn't have to be all baseball, because the Steelers played at Forbes Field, for quite some time.
Yeah.
Babe Ruth played for I guess it would have been the Boston Braves. Was it his last game that he played?
It wasn't his last game, but it was his last 3 home runs, and one was the first to go over the right field. I think the last one was the first to go over the right field roof at Forbes Field. And Gus Miller, I don't know if you remember Gus Miller's newsstand in Oakland.
No, I've never heard of it. No,
it was a classic place. It was there for years, just closed down in the 90s, I believe. And Gus Miller was a famous businessman in Oakland, and he found the ball and claimed it went almost 600 feet, his Babe Ruth's final home run.
Wow. And that just seems like, I don't know, that seems impossible to me.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I'm sure it
that's a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things certainly were back then. But you know what? It adds to the charm of especially the baseball
folklore and everything. Yeah. Yes, exactly. So you've seen games at Forbes Field?
No.
And No, you haven't?
I have not. My first
Oh,
baseball game was at Shea Stadium in New
oh,
York
that's
in
right. Yes,
1969,
we talked about that yesterday
and then I didn't see a Pirate game till the next year at after Three River Stadium opened.
after it opened.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember my mother saved um, the newspaper. I think it was probably the Post, actually both the Press and the Post Gazette, the day I was born, June 1970. And
Oh,
there was
okay.
extensive coverage about the absolute finalization of Three River Stadium.
Oh, yeah.
So that would have been before the All-Star break. And the All-Star game that year was played in Cincinnati.
Right.
And then when when the Pirates came back home for its first homestand after the All-Star game in 1970, that's when they opened Three River Stadium.
Yeah. Yeah. They played the
And
first part of the season at Forbes. Correct.
right now, I've talked to some people about this, and you're probably a uniform guy like I am. You know,
Yes.
we've talked about our favorite Pirate combos from the late '70s and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And it actually happened in hockey this year, the opening day. I don't think anybody had a clue that when they saw the Pirates warming up, before the start of the game, they're wearing their traditional vests, black hat like this,
Yeah.
and yet they came out in these brand spanking new uniforms, the pullovers,
Yep.
with a mustard gold colored hat, which you can see in my background. And that came as a surprise, I would imagine, to everybody that was at
Oh,
the
yeah.
game.
It
You
revolutionized
know,
uniforms.
yes, and it introduced a whole new uniform system for Major League Baseball.
Yes.
And the Pirates did go on to um, the playoffs in '70, and I think they lost to the Reds in
They got,
'70, right?
yes, they got swept. Yeah.
Beat the Giants in '71,
Hmm.
lost to the Reds again in 1972. Bob Moose threw a wild pitch
Crushed me.
that aced the game. Now, you have a book that you penned about certain Pittsburgh moments in sports, and I remember seeing it on the list. Which book is that?
That is we call it Unlucky 21. And
Unlucky, yes.
the reason it's Unlucky 21 is you not only lost Roberto Clemente in a tragic accident, but you lost Archie Vaughan, who died young trying to save somebody in a lake and drowned. He wore 21. And of
Oh,
course,
wow.
Michel Briere, who was a
Yes.
Penguin rookie, the only one of three Penguins to have their number retired, was ended up dying months later, but he was in essence killed in an auto accident after his rookie season. So
That was up in
three,
Quebec, where
yeah,
I
yeah.
believe. Yes, right.
So three. The Steelers are the only major professional team in the area who were allowed to wear a 21. So we called our book Unlucky 21, and it goes through because it's part of history. It's
Yeah.
the tragic times and the unfortunate times are also part of a history, and it was the first collaboration I had with some great authors, and um, all the and still today all the proceeds of all our royalties go to the Josh Gibson Foundation, run by
Oh, excellent. Yep.
Josh
Sean's doing a
Gibson,
great
or
job with that.
yeah, his great grandson Sean Gibson, who does a
Right.
fabulous job in helping to educate those in need. Um, and his foundation, I can't speak highly enough of.
Oh, for sure. There's no, yeah, and there was news a couple weeks ago about Dick's Sporting Goods
Yes,
becoming a donor
yes,
for the new center that's going to be opened coming up, hopefully by next year or something
yes,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's just such wonderful news, and it's great for the foundation. It's great for Sean personally, and it's going to be
absolutely.
great for all the kids, from that part of town or anywhere,
Sure.
really, to be honest with you.
Oh yeah,
So it goes to show actually some of the great work that people like Sean Gibson, Chuck Cooper III, which I know that you collaborated on a book with Chuck Cooper III
yes,
about his father,
yes.
who played at your alma mater, kind of my alma mater. I do have a master's degree from Duquesne. My
Well,
son
you
is a
count.
Duquesne grad.
You count.
You know, we're a tight community,
The
us
Duquesne
Duquesne people.
family. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so and I know Chuck. I know you know Chuck very, very well.
Yeah.
What an honor that had to have been to put that book together.
Oh, it was fabulous. And you talk about things we didn't know going into it. Chuck Cooper, who in my mind is, if you want to put, we use the word hero to athletes too often in life. This guy was an absolute hero. He
Right.
was an American hero, and not much because he was also a very a guy who certainly didn't like to talk about himself, didn't like to brag. There wasn't a lot really known about him, even to his son.
Okay.
I mean, every day I would find things in the paper like Chuck Cooper was, when you held out in those days, you basically put your career on the line and most times ended it. Chuck Cooper was the first Celtic to hold out for a contract. He wanted to be paid like his white counterparts.
Right.
Chuck Cooper wasn't afraid to go up against people. I mean, Jackie Robinson, for a couple years after he signed, was told, do not challenge anybody. So he would have to hold in his thoughts and
Right.
his principles, where Chuck Cooper just, if it wasn't right, Chuck Cooper spoke up about it. And it was such an honor to be able to find out about that story and write it and let people know, in all aspects of life. This man was the first African American to be drafted into the NBA, of course, is what he's most known for.
Of course, right.
But he also was the first to actually play a game. He doesn't get credited for it because it wasn't a regular season game, but he was the first African American to step on an NBA court amid hate, amid prejudice. To me, that counts. Okay, nobody was not angry at it because it was an exhibition game. And he was the leading scorer of that game. He was the first black to start an NBA game. He was the first to be named. He was named the director of Parks and Recreation in Pittsburgh. The first.
Yeah, Chuck was telling me that story. Yep.
So he was the first with that. He was the first. Then at PNC Park, he basically was the first of his kind, and was essential in helping build places that needed businesses, such as the Hill District, homes. He would make sure they got the loans to fund these things, and would never brag about it.
He was a champion of social justice issues, obviously.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, he taught himself how to speak Spanish so he could have a job.
I did not know that. That's fantastic.
Yeah, taught himself how to play the saxophone. Because he liked the saxophone. He was an adult. He was a gourmet chef. I mean, there wasn't anything this man couldn't do.
That's incredible. Oh man, that's just the best. I didn't know any of these facts, and that's what I love about history, learning new things every day. Yeah. And you're certainly providing an education right now, David. So I love it. And it actually leads to this question I have for you.
Yes.
When I told you, I think I sent you a text message and I told you what emoji, the thought that came in my mind when I saw your very extensive book list, your book resume, my eyes literally almost did pop out. How many people out there in the country, in other major cities, do you know of who have such an extensive book resume that covers everything, every detail about, all the different sports, professional sports leagues, collegiate sports, anything else, in cities like Boston or, Philadelphia, New York? I think about some of the cities that have, all the professional sports leagues, but also have, numerous colleges and universities with powerhouse football or basketball programs. How many are out there who are doing what you're doing, David? Do you know?
I have no idea. I haven't come close to checking that.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, I thought about this last night, actually. It was kind of last minute thoughts about this podcast, this episode, and it just dawned on me. I mean, yeah, there could be a couple, like maybe sports history professors at such universities, somewhere in Philadelphia or in Boston or whatever. Um, but I'm so impressed by all the work that you've done. Is where I'm going
Well, I
with this,
appreciate that.
and
Thank you. Thank you.
and oh, absolutely, absolutely. So it leads into my next question: is when when did you know that you wanted to be a writer? Let's get back into the roots, and at the
Yeah.
beginning phases of your writing background. When was it that you knew that you wanted to be a writer or a journalist? And if you can just kind of walk us through that history in your early life.
Sure. Well, I mean, that was my dream as a kid. Believe it or not, my Uncle Tom Akins was the editor of the Tribune Review,
Oh, okay.
and he was several awards. The paper was always deemed the best in Pennsylvania. It won several awards for that. Um, and I always loved what he did. Loved reading his stuff. I mean, he was certainly a guy that promoted change. Um,
Okay.
and that kind of fired me up. And he employed a man who we all know from our day named Phil Music,
Oh, yeah.
um, who was one of our most celebrated columnists in Pittsburgh, and had a talk show which, next to Myron and Stan Saverns, was my favorite talk show of all time. Um, and those two were my inspirations when I was a kid.
Hmm.
Um, and then I grew up. I was a sports editor at my high school paper, assistant sports editor on the Duke at Duquesne. Um, my problem was, to be honest, I when it came to writing, I didn't have a lot of self confidence in myself.
Yes.
Um, I didn't, think what I was writing was good enough.
Right.
Um, and I did um, talk with men of the old Pittsburgh press about a job as a stringer. Um, but I also had family who was in retail, and I got an offer as to be an assistant buyer, paid more money. I was getting married, and I guess from a journalism standpoint, I could always wonder if I could have been, rather than have to prove it and not be it, which was a youthful mistake, and people make that. And
Right.
but I entered retail. I've had a nice career. It's built a nice life for me, but I was always frustrated that I never got a chance to live my dream.
Right.
So um, I'd always my friend Chris Fletcher, as we talked about, was at Pittsburgh Magazine. He knew I wanted to. He gave me the opportunity to do a monthly fun column for the paper, which I'm always indebted to him for giving me that opportunity.
Hmm.
In the when I was in my mid 30s, and then, but I always wanted to. I love the research. I would research things for no apparent reason, and I would always come up with these ideas for my wife on books, but I would never send them in. So one day she basically said to me, "Look, um, pardon my language, but she told me, either shit or get off the pot. Either send it
Right.
into a publisher
Right.
or just stop."
Yep.
So it was an idea on a book on baseball in the country during World War II, which
Okay.
was
Yes.
which was played by either guys too young, too old, or who had injuries and weren't drafted. The high majority of players in all sports were drafted into the armed forces. Um, and I sent it into a national publisher, McFarland Publishing, um, and I just got lucky that they were looking for an article on or a book on such a subject at the time, and our paths met, and um, it became my first book. And um, through that, Sports Publishing Inc., who was the top sports publisher in the country at the time, um, saw it, contacted me. They were doing a series of books on team encyclopedias, and asked me if I was interested in doing an encyclopedia on the Pirates, and that came to be. And from there, things took off.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, and it really did take off. I mean, you know, I just again, you know, your vast knowledge, your vast interest in diverse, you know, topics, titles of your books and everything. I have one actually sitting right here, and hopefully everybody can see this. Behind the mic,
Yep.
I see Myron Cope, and I see Mr. Hillgrove, Bill Hillgrove.
Yes, sir.
Call him Mr. Hillgrove because he and my dad actually worked together in the 1960s.
Oh, okay.
Fresh out of Duquesne University.
Duquesne University grad, yeah.
Yes, he was. I think the class of 62. And he was spinning records as a DJ. Jazz was the format. WKJF was 93.7, and it's the station that sits right on top of the West End Circle, with the large tower.
Yeah.
And then he was there all throughout the 60s. I think it was like late 1960s that Mr. Hillgrove went over to WTAE.
Yeah.
And started his, you know, amazing career as a sportscaster, and we all know where that took him.
Oh, he is on my Mount Rushmore of Pittsburgh broadcasters.
Oh, absolutely. Number one. Yeah. Who are the other three?
The other three are Bob Prince, Mike Lang, and Myron Cope.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense, you know. And these are all people. I remember Bob Prince, you know, when he made his comeback in the mid 1980s.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife and I were at that first game against the Dodgers, where they were a bad team. They were not obviously expected to do much. Bob Prince comes on in the third or fourth inning, and all of a sudden the team explodes for 11 or 12 runs in an inning. And, you know, he gets tired after an inning or two and has to turn the mic back over to Lanny because he's exhausted. He has cancer at the time, and was exhausted.
That was because I think I was at this game too with my friend across the street, who's the best man at my wedding, Jimmy Chris.
Yeah.
And his mother took us to it was a weeknight game.
Yeah. Yeah. It was the first game I went to with my newly married wife.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was at that game. I literally was at that game because I remember Mrs. Chris pointing out up at the press box.
Yeah.
There's Bob Prince.
Yep.
And, you know, and I always knew all about him because, again, my dad working in radio throughout his career, he was a member, one of the original members of the press club.
Yeah.
And he would talk about, not all the time, he wasn't a bragger about anything he did throughout his career, but he did know everybody, you know.
Oh.
And every now and then he would talk about Bob Prince because at one point he even worked at KDKA-AM.
Yeah.
And I remember in the 79 season when the Pirates won the World Series that year.
Yes.
I got to sit actually in the radio booth, and there was Lanny Fratteri and Milo Hamilton.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And I'm pretty certain that was 1979. You know, you would definitely know more about this than I would because I don't remember when Milo Hamilton left Pittsburgh to go on next team he was working for.
He went on to the Astros soon after.
That's what I thought.
He's a Hall of Fame announcer who just nobody was going to replace Prince, and he did not he was not treated well.
He was a nice guy.
He was a nice guy, great announcer.
Talking to me in between innings, you know, made me feel like I belonged there, you know.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
And I'm not going to come out with factual information because I'm already about 0 for 2 or 0 for 3 the beginning part of this episode. So I'm just going to ask.
You're doing good.
I know.
Yeah.
No, but it's these memories that we all have.
Yeah.
And tying into everything that, you know, you've written about your memories as a child growing up east of Pittsburgh, coming in for games, all that type of stuff. What is it about Pittsburgh? It's just something, I even mentioned this in an earlier podcast. I love it when recording artists come to Pittsburgh and when they're done with their first song, their first couple songs, they say, "Hello, Pittsburgh,"
Yeah.
And that always fired me up.
Yeah.
And I'm still trying to, it's not like I'm solving this big, problem in a Calc 3 class with a whiteboard. But what I'm trying to accomplish with this podcast, to be honest with you, is what is it about Pittsburgh that brings out all these, even just like, all the great memories, all the great teams, all the allure of us being the city of champions, black and gold. I remember when the Penguins switched to black and gold in January of 1980.
I was at
Didn't
that
know
game.
anything about it,
I was at that game.
Were you?
Yeah.
Okay, I know my brother had season. My dad used to have the season tickets when he was at the station on Mount Washington.
Yeah.
We went to all the games because nobody wanted them. So
Right.
I kind of felt like I was half raised at the Civic Arena, watching the old team, from the 70s, wearing blue and white, or navy blue, light blue, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I thought to myself, I think it was like a newspaper clip, maybe a story in one of the papers. I thought to myself, it's about time the Penguins are wearing black and gold.
Yeah.
And it was the same uniform. They just swapped colors.
Yeah. It was, look, they were, we always used to make the joke when I went to Duquesne, we'd pay $5 for the worst seat in the house. And by the end of the first period, we were on the glass because nobody was there. And,
right.
And you give the usher a couple bucks, he'd turn the other way while you sat at the glass.
Yeah.
It was a money grab. It was,
Sure.
they were trying to figure out a way to get fans in the building and they were playing off the city of champions because they were, every generation has their loser team. Ours was the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Right.
But it was a thing that needed to be done, and it wasn't easy because the Boston Bruins were trying to block it, claiming those colors belonged to them, and the NHL just kind of chuckled at them because, as they found out, those colors actually belonged to the Pittsburgh Pirate hockey team, who first wore them when they played in Pittsburgh in the 30s, which was our first NHL franchise.
Did they play at the Duquesne Gardens?
They played at the Gardens, and they were actually the first team to use lines. Before then, a player would basically play the whole game. There'd be substitutes every so often, but players would play the whole games. They were the first team that it was a rudimentary thing where it was like two lines, one for 10 minutes, another for 10 minutes, and and they'd kind of switch off and on like that, but they were the first.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So anyway, getting back to the question, what is it about Pittsburgh? Why do we shine?
We shine because, and it's how I feel, and it's what others outside, when I ask them the question, their thoughts when they come. It's a small town feel in a large metropolitan area.
Yep.
We are, as sports fans especially, we're a family. And it's why Steeler bars. Every city I would travel to, you don't find Buffalo bars everywhere. You don't find necessarily Boston bars everywhere, but you find a Steeler bar in every nook and corner of the world. Not just my wife found one when she traveled to Italy this past spring.
Is that the one in Rome?
Yeah, she was in Rome. Yeah.
Okay.
And but it's this bonding, and the sports teams bond us. It's our memories. It's our, as I always tell people when they claim, oh, if this franchise or that franchise was here, we would be the same, blah blah. It's like, no. When you put a million people downtown because we have a new orchestra leader for the Pittsburgh orchestra, then you can tell me it's the same thing. But it doesn't evoke the passions
Doesn't
in
resonate at that level, right?
no, and whether you know nook and cranny about sports like we know, or you're just new to the game and just want to be part of the atmosphere, it's something for everybody. And when
Yeah.
you're traveling in other cities or on vacation, and I wear my black and gold, somebody inevitably is going to come up to me minutes later and tell me of their experiences in Pittsburgh. Now,
Yeah.
unfortunately, when I wear my pirate stuff, people from other cities will come up and feel sorry for me. But um, but this is what binds us, these memories.
Right.
Now it's the Stanley Cup. It's the early 21st century Steelers.
Yeah.
In our day, it's Willie Stargell and Roberto Clemente, the agents of success. I mean, I in my new book, I take up the claim, were they the team of the decade in the 70s, which, spoiler alert, the Reds were. But
Yeah.
we were, I think we were right on their heels. Um, but this is what binds us, and this is what's special about this city. Everybody knows what a Permanis is. Everybody, my cousin come in from New York. First thing they want me to do is take them to Permanis, because they've heard about this from their other friends from Pittsburgh. I mean, every community has its different things. In Greensburg, we grew up, Italians were the high majority. So
Right.
we grew up all together, but we were Pittsburghers, because our sports memories were Pittsburgh. So it's why we're special. Small town in a big area, family atmosphere, and our sports teams are the binding agent.
Yeah, that's so well said. Great answer to that question. And I don't know if you've ever been asked that question before or not. I'm sure you have in conversations numerous times,
Yeah.
So I mean, I can't thank you enough just for that explanation. So okay, speaking of the '70s Italian heritage where you grew up, Franco Harris, 1972, um, seemed to be that extra charge that the Steelers needed to go to the next level. The first year they made the playoffs in how many years?
Yeah.
In '72. Franco's Italian Army. Did your dad feel that kinship, kind of, sort of, with the Franco's Italian Army?
My dad did. We all did.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a first generation American, um, and his sister, in fact, was born in Italy before they came over.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, we all felt, the whole family felt that connection to him. I mean, we had to get over the fact he was from Penn State, but but I mean, once he gave up the blue and white and put on that black and gold, he was ours.
Right.
And he was the catalyst. He was. I mean, we had all the pieces, but we didn't have uh, the franchise running back. He became
Right.
that guy. Robert Newhouse was who they wanted. Um,
Okay.
but there was conflict within the organization. They decided on Franco Harris. Robert Newhouse was the more credentialed college back, and who became a solid NFL runner. But that's all he was. Franco Harris became a Hall of Famer. And
Right. Oh my gosh.
he wasn't real good at the beginning, but 3 or 4 games into it, he went on a streak of 100-yard games. Rushed for, if I'm not mistaken, 1,055 yards that season, 5.6 per yard carry, which was just outrageous. I mean, in a league where a 4 yard per carry is considered good, Franco was phenomenal. He combined
Right.
speed and size like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And of course, my dad and my Uncle Vince had season tickets. Dad would go with them every game, and they'd take us to a few games.
Hmm.
So my uncle was president of Joseph Horn Company, and got us
Okay.
all tickets to the Immaculate Reception game.
I was going to ask you about that
Yeah,
because we talked about this just, I
yeah,
think, yesterday. I
yeah,
was going to ask you what you were
yeah.
doing on December 23rd,
So
1972.
so we were there. and it was their
Mm-hmm.
first playoff game since 1947. They lost that year. They had tied for the Eastern Division title, and they had to do a one-game playoff with Philadelphia that they were mad they weren't getting paid for, and you could see in a lackluster 21-0 loss that playoff game. So this was the first one in 25 years, and it's a bad game. I mean, if you watch the replays of it, it is a bad, boring football game.
Right.
Steelers were up 6-0, should have been more. They were pretty dominant, and they had this quarterback named Ken Stabler, who became a Hall of Famer. But
Yes.
you and I could outrun Ken Stabler. He was that slow. So it's 6-0 late in the game. Steelers trying to protect that win. Get a nice rush on Ken Stabler, and somehow nobody on the, I guess as you're facing the goal line to the left side, no Steelers were over there. Ken Stabler
Gee.
runs around, breaks into the open, and stunningly runs late in the game, very late in the game, for a touchdown to put Oakland up 7-6. So this lousy game now becomes 7-6. Back then, every time the Steelers would screw up, they were called SOS, same old Steelers.
Yeah.
So my dad, who was a wonderful human being and my personal hero, was not a good loser, and he hated traffic. A combination that would combine to make our experience very, very unique that game. So
Mm-hmm.
Dad utters a few swear words, turns to my brother and I, and says, "Let's get the hell out of here and beat traffic." So we get up, we go, we're walking down the ramp, get off the ramp at Gate C at Three River Stadium, and hear this tremendous roar.
Wow.
So we're walking over the bridge. I'm 9 at the time, so I'm just excited the team won. I'm not bitter or think they won. I'm not quite sure at the time. So we get to the car, turn on the radio. Up to that point, we thought, well, maybe somehow Roy Jarella kicked a field goal to win the game. So we don't even know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So we turn on. We're learning of what happened as we're driving home. And we couldn't even see a replay because back then home games were blacked out.
Right.
So they would replay the games on the next day. So the next day we got to see a replay. So it was 24 hours before we actually saw the Immaculate Reception. So until the day my father lived to 100, died about 9 years ago. And until the day he died on December 23rd, every year my brother and I would get with him, jerk him around on how he made us miss the Immaculate Reception.
I mean, those things happen,
Oh, we weren't bitter at all. We were, as I said, we were young, we were happy.
It's a good story. It's a good story.
Yeah, we have a memory that's unique. And
Right.
in fact, in one of the books, Chris and I, Chris was at the game too, Chris Fletcher,
right.
we write a chapter basically comparing our Immaculate Reception experiences, all kind of tongue in cheek. So it makes for a fun chapter about the Immaculate Reception, different angle on it.
Yeah. I'm starting to giggle because we were talking about Chris yesterday.
Yeah.
And you met Chris at Duquesne University.
Oh, yeah.
Writing for the school newspaper called The Duke, I believe it was called, right?
Called The Duke, yeah. Just actually had its 100th anniversary this year.
Yes. I would pick up a copy on my way to the office every time it was published in Fisher Hall.
Yeah.
And I always had a lot of respect for the work that the students are doing, covering all the happenings on campus, But we were having a conversation about this is after the year after you graduated from Duquesne University.
Yes.
There was a special, we'll call it a special edition of the Duke that came out around April Fool's, and it was spring of 1984 semester. Do you want to talk a little bit in detail about that particular issue?
Well, every year we would write some fun, rude articles that would make us laugh.
Rude articles.
We chuckle, we throw them away, and then we'd put out a sort of tame, tongue-in-cheek Duquesne Duke April Fool's issue.
Right.
So the next year, after I graduated, Chris was, I believe he was the editor and publisher of or the editor, not publisher, but the
Yeah.
editor of
Right.
the Duke. And they made the decision to make a Duke and actually print those, rude articles, which, again, as a kid, you're laughing. Even today, I laugh about it. They were articles that were not so complimentary towards the school president, the administrators, the student government president at the time, who was a jerk. I'm not gonna say I didn't chuckle at what he was, what the articles were written, but they actually put this thing out. Obviously, I mean, we're talking. It would make the writers at the National Lampoon blush. They were pretty funny, but they were pretty rude, and
Yes, they were.
it became a national thing. I mean, it
Uh-huh.
wasn't just a Pittsburgh thing; it was a national thing, and
Right.
they were threatening to kick Chris and the other editors out of school, and it got to the point where the local press got on their side
Right.
and said, "This is freedom of the press. How can you?" and put the
Yeah.
pressure on the school that they basically just slapped their hands and went on. Well, I know I was a very popular guy because that obviously the papers were pulled. Chris luckily pulled aside some to give to us.
Uh-huh.
So I was a very popular guy in the city because this was the talk of the town.
Yes, it was.
And and it got him some notice, and he ended up with a fine career in journalism, and
It's
deservedly
called the
so.
Weekly Douche, correct?
The Daily Douche, yes.
The Daily Douche.
Yeah, I think it was either the Duquesne Douche or the Daily Douche, one of them. But
Right.
I
Right.
mean, I mean, you know, I'm not going to mention the names, but there were some names that
No.
still make me laugh my ass off every time I
Yeah.
think about it. But it was a bold thing, and it was. I mean, I really think it got opened some doors for him that might not have been open prior to that, because he was a popular man in the journalism community at that point.
And doing that at the age of what, 22 or whatever.
20,
Just
21, I believe. Yeah.
21.
So,
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
that's just it's crazy.
Oh, it was.
So
It was.
a copy of the Weekly Douche ended up in our house, 1128 Princeton Road in Thornburg.
Yeah.
This is my sister-in-law, Karen. Karen's sister, Judy, was a freshman
Yeah.
at Duquesne. And I remember there was, all the hubbub, in the news about it. We ended up with a copy, and I read it, and I don't remember the exact details of these fictitious stories, these rude stories. But I remember what I read was pretty damn rude.
Oh, it was. I mean, it was.
The horoscope was terrible. Cancer, you have it. I mean,
Yeah.
that part. Yeah,
And I got to tell you, that was one of my, as rude as that was the thing that made me laugh the hardest.
made me laugh as a 13-year-old going on 14.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. No, it was. I mean, it was great. Chris, and I've always nicknamed him the rudest man alive. Um, uh, he is the most talented journalist. I mean, we've had a lot of great journalists come out of Duquesne in our era.
right. Oh, of course.
But to me, he
Absolutely.
was the most talented. I mean, he just has a flair um, and a look on things that is unique, but it's usually spot on. And I can't say I've read Pittsburgh Magazine over the past few years, but when he did it, it was a nationally renowned, award-winning magazine. And
Yep.
it wasn't just a fluff piece for. I'm not saying that's what it is now because I haven't read it, but it used to be a fluff piece when Chris was writing. It was hard journalism, and it told you good, down to earth stories and told you the truth.
Right. Right. I remember my dad getting that magazine.
Yeah.
And after he passed in '84, I think we actually continued the subscription for a short time period after that.
Yeah.
But I would read it. I mean, anything that was Pittsburgh, I was into back then.
Yeah.
Which is still trying to find that that rudimentary dimension of why Pittsburgh is what it is. Which I think I'll be seeking that for the rest of my life, actually. But anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you are definitely one of the major contributors, especially going back to some of the first books you published in the early 2000s, at the start of the 21st century. Your contributions to the local media, and anyone in the world who comes across, typing in Pittsburgh, wants to read about Pittsburgh, your books are going to come up on Amazon, in these searches. And David, I can't thank you enough, for coming on the show. You're doing such great work. Your collaborators with you, all of you are just doing, the best work on so many great topics that are all just Pittsburgh.
Yeah, well, thank you very much.
And again, I don't know if there's anyone out there, and even on the West Coast in Los Angeles or in Seattle or in San Francisco Bay Area, who has this book resume, about their local, sports scene like you do. I'd be curious to know who those people are if they're out there. So, David, that's a big testament to you and your work.
Thank you so much. I really
It really,
appreciate
really
it.
truly is.
It is just
It
a
really truly
absolute
is.
joy and living a dream of a 10-year-old kid back in the 70s.
Yeah. And just keep up the great work. And before I have you sign off, before we sign off, the phone was ringing. It was actually one of my sponsors, ironically, Kurtanich Construction.
Okay.
So I do. Oh, that's somebody else. I should have turned my phone off. It's just a rookie mistake in the podcasting industry, I
Not a
guess.
big deal.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
And Clarke Analytical Instruments, Invisio, I want to thank them for their sponsorship, for giving me this opportunity to get these episodes out there for our community here in Pittsburgh and across the country. So, David, thank you very much again, and you and I will definitely, without question, be in touch.
You got it. Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
Yes, and have a great day. Thank you.